didn't want to hear nothing. That uniform meant nothing to him. Just again, the hate of my black body elicited from this guy. And I think if I would have resisted, he would have killed me short, anything else. Just as sure as the day is long. Just wickedness. This, to be on the opposite end of a person who hate you for whatever reason and have power, it's an unbelievable thing.
Welcome to 365 Brothers, the podcast. I'm your host, Robin Shine. I am delighted to bring to you brothers from across the United States and from various professions talking about their life experiences, their wisdom, and a conversation that also touches on racial profiling in the United States, how pervasive it is, what the impact is. And remember, you can follow us on Instagram at 365 Brothers. Also, follow us on Facebook at 365 Brothers, the podcast. If this is your first time listening to a 365 Brothers episode, make sure you subscribe because you do not want to miss one brother's wisdom, one brother's experience, and their perspective on life in the United States. Today, we're speaking with a gentleman who's originally from Brooklyn, New York, currently resides in Columbia, South Carolina. We're speaking with Pastor Curtis Flemming. Welcome, Curtis. How are you today?
Hi, how are you? I'm great. Good to be here.
Fantastic. So, before we go into the questions, is there anything you'd like to share with the listeners to help them get to know you better?
Yeah, I'm married to the lovely Dr. Nancy McAfee Fleming. I born in Brooklyn, New York, and lived in New Jersey, Philadelphia, California, Oakland, and now I live in Columbia, South Carolina. So I am the father of 7 children, still have 2 at home, and I'm excited about it.
Wow. That is not the common number these days.
Yeah, I know. That's what happened when you don't pay the cable bill.
All right. Well, go ahead. You and Dr. Nancy. I like it. Wow. 7 kids. So how old is your oldest, if I can ask?
Our oldest is 40. And then we have 2 years gap in between 40, 38, 36, 34, 32, and then gap to 13 and 12. I think I got them all in there.
Okay, so you had a couple decades where the cable was taken care of.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
Was working hard and making money then. That's trying to yeah.
I think that's awesome and amazing. So, let's go ahead and dive in. What is your favorite song or movie, either now or all time?
I like the Alex Haley take on miniseries of Roots. I know that's not really a movie, but it was a movie to us. And then I think my favorite song would be Stairway to Heaven. Rock and roll, but yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Great choices all around. I do remember the miniseries. I'm pretty sure it was ABC. That's how much I remember it, Yep. I believe it aired on a weeknight, not a weekend. And I remember my mom let me stay up. I believe it was like 9 to 11. It was in 2-hour increments. Yes.
For people who were born in, after 1990, you can't imagine how unheard of it was to have a Black series that was so deep in talent.
Right.
That wasn't just some comedy, good times or whatever, but just deep content, all Black cast for the most, not all Black, but, predominantly Black cast, and going over some hard stuff.
Yeah.
It was. And somehow, well, see, now I'm talking about your favorite choice. I got a bad habit of that. So instead of me going on my memory lane, for you, what was it about Roots that for you made it, one of your all-time favorites?
Well, again, it was very informative, and coming up, when I came up kind of too young to really know what it was like to be affected by overt racism. I might have experienced it, but I was too young to really appreciate it. My parents weren't. So this was a lesson in history that just really hit me smack dab in the face. And I can remember getting really angry, at our white relatives. I mean, really angry and just militant. And my mother said, who grew up in the South, actually, she grew up in South Carolina. She said, you have not experienced what we've experienced, so you really don't have a right to be angry. Just kind of make something out of yourself, and you can combat it by taking what your ancestors did and making something out of yourself. So that's my experience. But It was riveting. The movie, the riveting. Never forget it.
Yeah. Oh, riveting is the word. Yeah. So my family on my maternal side was in the Nation of Islam for a while in the 70s. So, for me, it wasn't, for those who don't know, I pretty much grew up with those white devils.
Right.
And, so even though there was conversation about it, and I feel like I had some understanding of history, to see it dramatized like that, there's just no preparation for the first time you see that dramatized.
Right. Yeah. And I grew up in a Christian household, but my dad, who also was a Christian pastor, he stated unequivocally, you can't trust those white folks. He was a Christian, but I mean, life experiences. I mean, he grew up in Eastover, South Carolina, on his father's land, who was his grandfather's land. But his experiences made him, kind of, I guess, he loved the Lord, loved people, but the reality is you can't trust them. You know what I mean? They will, some of them will kill you if they have the opportunity. So, experience shapes our theology at times. It puts somewhat of a, a corrective. I mean, he wasn't in the nation, but he said he kept the gun.
Right.
Better to be caught with one than without one. So he's going to defend himself.
Right. And, I appreciate you saying that about the history, because my grandmother, I remember I just discovered, I don't know, or I should say realized maybe 7-8 years ago that she was born just 5 years after the Tulsa race riots and grew up just 50 miles south of there. And I never appreciated while she was alive what might have informed her perspective, So, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about childhood. What is a favorite childhood memory?
When my older brother, the first in the family, who actually was, his name was Joseph Alaric Flemming II. He was the first in the family to go to college, and he purchased me a bicycle. My mom and my dad couldn't afford to do that, but he purchased me a bicycle. I think it was a Swin with a banana seat and a sissy bar, and it had the bells and the whistles. I mean, it was a thing of beauty. I see it in my mind now. I don't know if people remember what a banana seat is, but it's a long seat. Yeah, and had the sissy bars, and it was I think it was like a 5-speed, and that was it. My older brother was 10 years older than me. He was like a second parent. He was the oldest in the family. But that is a memory I will never forget. And I love him to life.
Oh my gosh. And what's clear and evident is his love. I'm going to extrapolate to to all his siblings and to his family. But, in this instance, since I'm talking to you, what's clear is his love for you. I mean, to know what joy that would bring you and to provide that.
Yep. Yeah. I'm the youngest in the family, so I'm the baby. And growing up in Brooklyn, there was always a lot of fire engines and sirens. And I was told that when I would hear one, I would jump out of my bed and run and jump in his bed. And so he was kind of like my security blanket. Now, my second oldest brother, John, whom I love dearly to life, he was more of a prankster. When I jumped in his bed, I think he didn't appreciate it as much. But Larry,
that's a very nice way to say it.
Yeah, he didn't appreciate it much. And so, but Larry was there, so he was like the second pops.
That's awesome. Let's talk about accomplishments. And I asked this question in two parts. So first, an accomplishment that means the most to you personally, and then an accomplishment that gets the or wow from others. So let's talk about the first. Which accomplishment means the most to you personally?
Believe it or not, it's crazy. So when I was in 11th grade, I decided to join the military. I just done with high school. So what I was going to do was, at that time, it was coming out with the high school equivalency, GED. And so I was going to stop and take the GED, because 12th grade was just a wash. I figured it was just a waste of time. And I'll take the GED, get my high school diploma, and then go ahead into the military. I was going into the Navy and kind of live life, see the world. Mm-hmm. The day I was supposed to I took like my English part, comprehension part, and I was supposed to go back for the GED to take my math section. And I had to report to service on that day for the Navy. I had to ship out for boot camp. And I never got to finish my high school equivalency diploma. And it was years. I completed the Navy and I did all that. So when I finally was able, I wanted to go and continue my education. And this thing was hanging over my life. I mean, I went to school, I went to trade schools, got good jobs, working really good job, but I never had my high school diploma. And then I went back and finally did it, went to night school and finally did it and got that GED. That was the most thrilling day in my life, I'd say, the education. So that was for me. For most other people, I went on back and I finished college and I finished grad school and got my master's. And then I went on and matriculated for a doctorate degree, which I'm still ABD because I had to stop for something else. But I completed the course and passed the curriculum and just have to write the dissertation. So for most people, the postgraduate work is more impressive than anything. But for me, why this is kept, it was that GED that was better than the master's to me. So
I think I get it, because it was something that was kind of an incompletion. Yeah. And to finally, it's like, you got something special, you make this cake and it's all cool, and all there is left to do is put the icing on it. And when you can finally come back and put the icing on it and look at that cake and go, oh, see, that's a good looking cake.
Right. Exactly. And I'm getting that feeling right now, even with the dissertation. I left Brooklyn. I was going to school upstate in New York, in Rochester, and to do my doctorate. And I left in between that process and moved to California. And so I just said, all right, let me just do all of the classwork, get all that done. I'll take the certificate to show that it was done, and I'll go back and I'll do the dissertation. Because I'm ABD, all but dissertation, that's all I have to do. So I'm kind of feeling that again now, that let me go ahead and put the ice in the cake. But I just was able to accomplish so much in Oakland that it just, it took priority over, my own personal desires for people to say, oh, call me doctor, whatever. I've always learned for the sake of just loving to learn. But someone said a long time ago, dude, if you're going to learn, you might as well get the accoutrement to learning. So matriculate. But actually, I kind of feel like, man, I'm tired of, I'm at the age now, I don't need you to confer your approval on me, stuff like that. But I'll go ahead and do it anyway.
Right. No, and I get it. It's like when you're in your 20s, 30s, it does. I'll speak for myself. I could imagine it's more important that, hey, I got my little JD, what's up? Versus, now it's like, whatever.
Yeah. I know. I mean, I know what books to read. I know how to, achieve knowledge. I know the system. I can make my own syllabi. You know what I mean? So
exactly. Awesome.
It'll be something to be nice, obituary when it happens. No, you just got this. But that's for other folk. We do that stuff halfway for other folk, or to try to get a job when we need it. But I'm beyond, having to prove something in this life. So
I hear you. Kind of hinted at it, but I want to be sure. So which accomplishment is the one that gets the or the wow? Is it that, like being, going for the doctorate?
Yeah. I think the postgraduate work. It's that GED. Yes.
I hear you. Well, let's talk about words. What is a favorite quote, saying, metaphor, or book, and why?
One of the favorite ones I would say comes from my mother. And she would always say, you need to wear this world like a loose fitting garment. Basically, in our faith tradition, you never allow things in this life to own you to such extent that you lose your soul. And in losing your soul, you lose your love of God, love of people, love of service. You don't want to lose those things.
Yeah.
So that's a homespun saying. And then Francis of Assisi, he was a rich young man, son of a merchant, who had a religious experience and turned his life into a life of service. And he would say, preach the gospel, and if you have to, say a word or two. And I think that's kind of profound. I think, and especially for today, most people want to show their faith verbally, but not demonstrate it in actuality. If you're going to proclaim who you are, what you stand for, do it non-verbally, but by your actions. So,
yeah. Both of those are new to me, and I love when I hear something new.
Cool.
Is there a person, moment, conversation, or event that stands out either as changing the trajectory of your life or had a significant impact on your life?
Definitely. So I was working a job, just a basic manual job at a small company. And when I was going to go out for the Christmas holiday break, going through November through Christmas holiday break, the employer gave me a turkey and a pink slip, lay me off. And you're just going to lay me off. Yeah. And then said, after the holidays, you can come back to work. I said, wait a minute. What do you mean after the holidays, come back to work? Most people get paid for the holidays. He says, oh, no, I'm not going to pay you for the holidays. I said, well, why not? He says, why should I? He said, I can get anybody to do your job. I said, really? And he said, yeah. He says, you don't have anything special to offer. He says, if you want to, be valued in the workforce, go get some training and, get a skill that people will pay and respect. And that's literally what the guy said to me. Literally. And,
oh, wow.
And that thing shook me. It shook me. So he just lumped me in with a group. He didn't value me. And I didn't like that. And he told me, he said, yeah, like those guys next door. And next door was a machine shop. Lehigh Tool and Manufacturing in Roselle Park, New Jersey. Roselle, New Jersey. He literally said, you should get a trade like those guys over there. Those guys are valuable. And I said, okay. So I took my turkey, took the pink slip, went on unemployment like he suggested. I never went back. I found me a school, teach me how to become a machinist. I did just that, and I got a job. Guess where? When I got out,
Lehigh Tool.
Yes,
and Manufacturing.
I did. Lehigh Tool and Manufacturing. Yes, I did. And I went in and I worked. And the bad thing about it was the guy saw me. There was a deli around the corner where everyone stopped to get coffee. He saw me. I was in the deli getting coffee, and he saw me like 6 months, maybe 8 months later.
Yeah.
And I said to him, "Hey, you remember me?" And he got deathly afraid, like I was going to do something to him. And he said, "You never came back to work." I said, "No." I said, "Guess where I work?" And he said, "Where?" I said, "Lehigh Tool and Manufacturing, next door to you." Yep. And so that changed. That taught me that sometimes we need the bad things. We use the bad things in life, the hurtful things in life, to propel us to do better. And that was one of those times that changed the trajectory of my life, because from there I was able to have a trade that paid me substantially good money. I was able to buy my first home off that trade, go to school at night off that trade, go to college, and then move from there into management. Ended up working for Pfizer Pharmaceutical as one of its top managers. So it did a lot. Right. It changed my whole life. It did.
I love that conversation. Yeah. I mean, I also get that it would have been hurtful to hear, right?
Yeah, it was.
In my economics class, I love going over supply and demand and labor. I have the kids, I ask them, okay, so how many people, it's worded some kind of way, but basically, how many people could work at Walmart? And then they have these different options. And one of the answers is anybody and their mama. It's like, multiple choice. And so then they go, okay, anybody and their mama. Okay, great. Right. And then, who could work at these other jobs? And then they're like, oh, well, you'd have to do this, and once they walk through it, they learn for themselves that it's who else can they get to do it? Because if they can get a lot of other people to do it, they ain't got to pay you much. How many people would you let open up your head, go inside, cut it open, and then expect that when they finish and put you back together, you can still walk, talk, and everything else. And they're like, well, not too many people. They got other training. I said, yeah, guess what? They get paid.
Exactly.
And so, he was able to communicate that in a very straightforward way. I mean, highly straightforward. But I really get that message. And kudos to you for hearing it and taking action, because that there are some folks who would hear that and it might take them a little longer before they could get in action. You heard it and were like, oh, really? Okay, well, bye.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, he had the nerve to try to fight against my unemployment too.
In some ways, I'm not surprised.
Yeah. And the funny thing about it, believe it or not, this is another thing. When I went down to get unemployment, all right, they actually had programs, all right, that I didn't know about. A sister told me, I was living in the East Orange, and this sister told me that, there's programs where you can collect your unemployment and be trained, and we'll pay for your training. You don't have to worry about saying you're going to find a job. I mean, there were systems there that was available to help me improve my life. There was training. And I would have never known that all of this stuff was available for me, this young Black kid, all right, unless I went through that experience. And, so I tell all young Black men, listen, you have to search, all right, for the opportunities to make your life better. Because believe me, they're probably existing already. You just got to dig and find it.
That is the truth. It is amazing how much you got great advertising for everything you don't need.
Yeah, exactly.
Chips, soda, cars, that a little more than you need, everything else, plenty of advertising. But that program that might be the perfect fit to move you ahead, you got to talk to some people. And sometimes you only find out about it because somebody hooks you up. And I was going to leave law school because I needed to make money, financial aid wasn't cutting it. And so I was going to take a year off. So I told this one professor that, yeah, she was like my advisor. So I'm going to take a year off and then I'm going to come back and finish, which is not what people do at that level, right? It's full time and you just do it. Anyway, I remember I told her a couple days before spring break, go to spring break. I come back and she's got a note in my little, campus mailbox. I go see her and she says, hey, I recommended you for this job. I'm doing pre-law advising. And it basically, the salary was ridiculous. I mean, it was all that I needed to get through. I mean, it was, and here's the thing, it was not advertised. If I hadn't opened my mouth and told her I was in need, who knows who she would have recommended. But I opened my mouth and then she already gave them my name and all I had to do is go to the interview.
You have not because you asked not.
Right? And that's why I'm sharing that, because I'm doubling down on what you said. It's like, it's not just searching, it's also, you got to let people know what you need.
Right. Right.
And I even think about how you didn't just take your turkey and your pink slip and just walk on off grumbling. You were like, hey, you got to get in communication.
Right. And that's it. I mean, and the ancestors would say, they were singing in their song, Jesus on the main line, tell them what you want. You have, the Bible will say you have not because you ask not. And my father had a great attitude. He said, like, don't never let nobody shut you up. And he would say, don't let the devil shut you up.
I like that.
Don't never let anybody. And so what he was saying is that you do not allow circumstances or people or situations to keep you from engaging. And we have to engage. Being a man, and I came through the time when being a young Black man was based upon basically being a gladiator. But being a man is so much more. The battles that we really need to fight, not how good you can box, not how much people respected you in the hood. All that was important to some of us coming up because of where we lived. But it's the battles we have to fight is so much more important. How am I going to be able to make myself a benefit to my family, to my children, a benefit to my race, and by implication, humanity. So, that's the battles. I tell my sons, I say, we don't live in the days of the gladiators anymore. We live in the days of the scholar.
Absolutely. I mean, it's the tools that are available today they're different tools, and these tools require different skills and different actions. So right on. What is a moment or event, Curtis, that highlights your experience as a Black man in the United States?
Well, I think it's the first time I realized I was different. I was going to school, and we had a little friend at school. His name was Jimmy Ferretti. And Jimmy had a little go-kart and a go-kart track in his backyard. And Jimmy lived on the other side of town by the school, but it was not our side of town. And he invited us to come over to play on this go-kart track. And when we went over, after a while, his mom's or someone, I recall, came, I think it was his mom's, came to the back door and called Jimmy over. And then Jimmy came back sad and said that we had to go home. He couldn't play with us. That was the first time I can remember. This is elementary school. And I can remember going home and wishing that I could be over at Jimmy Ferretti's house and his mom and everyone standing at the door, and my mother would pull up in a limousine and she would be white. That would show them. That's how I feel. I'm like, I feel bad about it now, but at that time, being a kid, the only, I just, that was my answer to being treated as other, is that I wish I could show them, that I got a rich white mother or whatever. It's crazy as it seems. I don't know why, whatever.
No, it makes perfect sense, because you're, as a kid, you're able to evaluate. You might not use this language as a kid, but you're like, so what's the currency here? Oh, the currency is color. Okay. Oh, and the currency is also money. So I'm gonna put those two together. Me and my white mama and her limo gonna drive up.
Right.
That it's
Right.
just it's what kids do. They like they distill it to the essentials. And so your kid mind did exactly what a kid mind would do. Assess.
Yep. And so that was hurtful. And I dealt with that because even when I was older, and I would drive through that area to get to the highway, and I'd drive right by Jimmy Freddy's house. And a house across the street that was bigger and better than Jimmy Freddy's, and I was able to purchase it, right? And I was thinking to myself, I should buy that house, and I should go knock on their door and tell them who I am. You know what I mean? I didn't do it. I bought another house back on the other side of town, because then I realized, I said, hey, years later, I was like, wait a minute, this side of town that we live on is really nice too. So, but that was hurtful. I mean, now imagine, now I'm grown and I'm driving through this area, and I'm still looking over at that house and at that experience because of the hurt I felt at a young age. So that story about stick and stones might break my bones, but words would never hurt me. Words hurt if they do.
Yeah. I mean, it left a scar.
It left a scar. Yeah. Thank God I got over it.
Right. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Have you had any interactions with law enforcement? And if so, what, when?
Yeah. Going over to Times Square in New York City, teenager, went to ask a police officer directions, and I tapped him on the shoulder to get his attention. And he went off on me. He went off, and I was no more than 15, 16. And he just went off on me. Just started poking me in my chest. Oh. Just like, just it was a bad situation. That was my first experience.
He went off on you because you touched him?
I touched him. Yeah.
Okay.
I said, excuse me, officer, because this was a subway cop too, a transit cop. And I couldn't understand why he did all of that. Couldn't figure it out. Right. But so that,
and it sounds like you were going to say another one.
Well, yeah, when I was in the Navy on shore leave in San Diego, California, walking down the street, kind of minding my business, some ruckus happened with some of my shipmates, and I went to look to see what was going on, because that's what we're trained to do. You stick with people on your ship.
Yeah.
And as I was looking, a police officer grabbed me, put me in a chokehold, threw me to the ground, locked me up for resisting arrest, and would not hear any. I was just like, officer, I'm in the Navy. I'm in the United States Navy. Just want to see if I was just looking to see if it was anybody off my ship. I meant no harm, no disrespect. Didn't want to hear nothing. That uniform meant nothing to him. Just again, the hate of my black body elicited from this guy. And I think if I would have resisted, he would have killed me, sure, anything else. Just as sure as the day is long. Just wickedness. This, to be on the opposite end of a person who hate you for whatever reason and have power, it's an unbelievable thing. Just how do you just hate people that you don't even know? You just hate them for whatever reason. It's insane to me. It's just, but I saw it in the eyes. You talk about evil. I've seen evil, and I'm serving my country, but please, to him I was nothing but a nigger, and basically he told me that. So that made me have to figure out a way to change my approach to dealing with law enforcement.
And how did it change your approach?
Well, you know what I did? I took to understand that most of these guys don't have anything but a high school diploma. Most of these guys, if they met you in any competitive arena, boxing ring, or without the uniform, without the gun, they wouldn't think twice to say anything to you at all. So why would I let them have power over my soul? So if you want me to show deference to you, to escape, to escape the situation, I'll show deference to you. I will make sure that in no uncertain terms, I respect you. I know you have the power at this moment of life and death. I understand that, but I also understand that you're an ignorant bastard, and that as soon as I get out of this, I'm taking your badge number down and everything, and I'm going to put something in your jacket. I'm going to call and make a complaint, and I'm going to make another complaint. I'm going to put something in your jacket that's going to stay with you for the rest of your career and make you think again. So it was just a different way of winning that battle, because as Black men, we can't win. Those people are used to aggression and force. They have a history of using aggression and force to get what they want. So when we respond with aggression and force, we're basically, demonstrating a way of being that they understand. But the Bible says something: a man that can control his spirit is greater than a man that takes a city. And so my moms and father will always have us to read the Proverbs, and that's a proverb, to get wisdom. And that helped me, control my spirit. I might not like it. You might be disrespecting me, but that's okay. That's all right. That's fine. You got this. Okay, I'm gonna control my spirit. And now I got a little money. I will have my lawyer call in a minute. You know what I mean? I will. Yeah. Yep. I will go the other way. I will. Yep. So I teach my boys the same way. Keep your mouth shut. Keep your hands on the wheel. You know what I mean? Yes, sir. No, sir. And get the badge number.
I love these conversations because for me, there's no such thing as too many perspectives or too many metaphors to understand something. And the way that you described it, what I'm present to, what I see now is being able to understand the playing field. Because you said something about how, if it was a boxing, in other words, if it was any other context, they wouldn't say a thing. And it's like, you basically are identifying, whose turf are you on in that moment? If I think about football, when you're playing that game and they're nasty as a team and the crowd is nasty, when you're in their arena, you're just doing what you need to do to win that game. That's it. You're not taunting, you're not doing anything, right? Get on the bus. Mm-hmm. But then once you're on the bus, if there was something that was really out of hand, you make a complaint, you follow up, you make sure that team is either, ineligible or they, whatever is the appropriate reaction. But while you're on the field in their arena, that's probably not the time to just get tripped. Right. And that's what I hear from how you said it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I will tell my brother, I will tell my sons, I said, listen, in situations like that, don't agitate, come home, and we'll litigate. That's my saying. That's what I tell them. Oh my gosh. We're going to get paid. Don't agitate. You know what I mean? If it's possible at all, escape the situation. When you get home, we'll litigate.
Okay, Johnny Cochran.
I should trademark that.
Don't agitate. Get yourself safe, then litigate. I see it right now.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Okay. Well, if the United States was a woman with whom you could speak, whether she is mother, sister, neighbor, lover, stranger, whatever, what would you say to her, the United States?
Don't treat your children differently. Every mother, every father knows that if you have more than one child, all right, you need to pour the same amount of Kool-Aid in the glass to each of them because they're watching. If you have kids that you treat differently, expect that they're going to act out and be hurt. And if you have hurt people in your family, hurt people. And I mean, we all have problems, made mistakes, but try to treat your citizens, your children, with equity. It's just better all around. Having a house full of people who think that you like Johnny better than you like Joey, or Jill better than you like Jan, it's just problematic all the way around.
Yeah.
It's just disruptive. So I would say that of the United States with my mother, in which in a way she is.
Mm-hmm.
Our people have been here since 1600. I mean, I can do the DNA, and it shows you exactly where I'm standing, right where my ancestors are from on this side of the diaspora. So
yeah, and it's kind of funny too, because you have, there are some European Americans who came here as part of various immigration waves in the 1800s, the early 1900s. Mm-hmm. And, they trace their ancestry back to Ellis Island coming over and mm-hmm. this and that. But it's like, how is it that you feel more American when you've been here half as long? There's this constant sense of otherness. I will speak for myself. I feel as if for a lot of white Americans, some European Americans, Black Americans are real citizens, but like that, mm-hmm. versus, like, excuse me, been here for a long time.
Long time.
Yeah.
Long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also will say, when I talk to brothers of a certain age, and I mean pretty much over, say, 40, 45, I don't know what happens in the 40 or under, but 40 and over, it seems like there were quite a few brothers that went into the military, at some point. And I keep meaning to look it up, but I don't know if it's the pool of brothers that I speak to, or if, like what the percentage of Black men who participated in and served in our military are. But in my experience, it seems high. But again, I keep meaning to check that and I don't, but I'm going to have to make sure I do, because there's so many brothers who have found value in being of service to the nation.
Right. Yeah, there's a sense of patriotic leanings, I would say, and then like my father served in World War II and in the Korean War, so there's that sense, but we also realize that this is our country, regardless of what you say. Say go back to Africa, okay? Give me a round trip ticket, I will. But this is my country. You can make all the hateful remarks you want, but my people, my ancestors bled and died for this country from the beginning, and I know that. So and I think a lot of recent immigrants, they bought into the lie that separates us. They just be just as poor as dirt. I know some folk just as poor as dirt, and if anything, they should be happy to align, and at one point they did, align themselves with us. But what they say, they tell you white, you're okay, you just as poor and backwards and mistreated as the rest of us. But it's okay. Your kids are hungry. At least they're white. So it's just madness. Racial prejudice is the most stupid thing it's just madness. Well, at least I'm white. Yeah, but look where you live. You know what I'm saying? Are you kidding me? You know what I mean? Are you kidding me?
It's a masterful tool to keep people from uniting around a common interest.
Right.
Well, at least I ain't, Black, or at least I'm not a woman, or at least I'm not whatever that is. And then, we're still looking at each other, pointing fingers, and not coming together around what matters to us. But, divide and conquer, I guess that's been around quite a long time, well before this nation was even built.
Yes. So true. Yeah.
What is love to you?
Love is the willingness to put others before your own selfish desires. Only in English do we have, one word for love that encompasses all things. I like what the Greeks and others, they have different love. They have erotic love, eros. They have brotherly love, filial. Then they have altruistic love, agape love. And agape love is probably the closest we can come to understand that love is sacrifice. Yes, I love the eros love, and I love the friendship love, but I'm loving my best when I'm willing to put others before myself, especially when it comes down to my woman. And Black men, we should learn to have that type of love for our woman, not just what I can get. That's one of the things that concern me, is that we've fallen into the custom of being able to mistreat and denigrate our own woman, use them as the objects of, fulfillment, satisfaction. That's not love. I mean, how do you do that to your own? So, but self-sacrifice, putting others before me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I appreciate you pointing out the objectification of women or men, but just that we relate to each other so object to object instead of soul to soul.
Right. Exactly.
Well, now I get to ask you, what is something that you've learned through your profession, your training, your experiences, or your adventures that you believe more Black men should know but don't, knowing that whatever you share with us, it benefits all of us?
Yeah. Wow. That's a good question. Well, I think, first of all, Black men need to take the time to really educate themselves on culture and see, that we have something to offer, as well as others, that would be a benefit to the world. And I think I've learned that through just exposing myself to other cultures and reading. I think that's important. And the responses is good to be seen. So I'm happy to be heard. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, thank you. This podcast is, I like it. I think it's a great idea, but it means nothing if I don't have brothers who are willing to share their lives and themselves with the listeners. So thank you for making yourself available. And I, there's this undertone of, I'm struggling for the words. It's because the word that's right there is not the word I want to use. The word that's right there is a righteousness, but that's not the word, because that has all these negative connotations. It's more like you take whatever is given to you and you use it for good. and it's like, wow, it's so evident. Yeah, it's just so evident. And yeah, anyway, thank you for being an example of that for all the listeners, that, in life, there will be experiences that we would rather not have had. And that it's not whether or not you have these experiences, it's what you do having had them. Remember, you can follow us on Instagram at 365 Brothers. Also, follow us on Facebook at 365 Brothers, the podcast. Lastly, I just want to let you know, producing a podcast, it takes something, and I'm really grateful to have partnered with alitu.com. They make publishing easy. There's a link in the show notes for anyone who either has a podcast or is thinking about a podcast. You don't need to learn all that sound balancing and compression. Save all that. Use your time for what matters, interviewing and sharing the stories that your podcast brings. Thank you for listening to 365 Brothers. I certainly hope you enjoyed the episode. I encourage you to subscribe. Please leave a review. I want to know what you think. Also, if you know someone who would be a fantastic guest for 365 Brothers, please direct them to our website, 365brothers.com. You'll also find all the episodes there, 365brothers.com, and your support is welcome. And remember, to listen is to love.